Afternoon, everyone, and thank you all for being here. I'd like to start by recognizing the other leaders that are here with me today. Chicago Department of Public Health Commissioner Dr. Allison Arwady, Business Affairs and Consumer Protection Commissioner Rosa Escarina. We are together so much, I don't think either of you really need any introduction at this point. I want to recognize Deputy Mayor for Neighborhood and Economic Development, Samir Mayakar, my friend and restaurateur, Alderman Tom Tunney, Chicago Cook Workforce Partnership CEO, Karen Norrington Reeves. Thank you, Karen, for being here. And Carla Augustinelli, Executive Director of the West Loop Community Organization. As we're all aware by now, we are in the midst of a second surge of COVID-19. There's no question about that. And it is the surge that we feared would happen. And yet another critical inflection point on our long journey with this terrible pandemic. And as the weather gets colder and people spend more and more time indoors, new cases have reached, unfortunately, record levels. We've put on, I think, about 30,000 cases since the beginning of October. And with the state's recent closure of indoor dining service, our hospitality industry is facing yet another barrier to recovery from this absolutely unprecedented crisis that has hit them probably the most hard of any industry in our city. Now, as mayor, I've made a priority to do everything in my power to support our residents, our workers, and our businesses as we all continue to navigate these very uncharted waters. And it's in that spirit that I am proud to join these fellow city leaders in announcing 4 new relief initiatives to support our neighborhood bars and restaurants during this very difficult time. First and foremost, we're rolling out a $10 million hospitality grant program to assist our city's independent bars and restaurants that have had to shut down indoor service as a result of the state order. These grants, which are made possible through a reallocation of our CARES Act funding, will be administered in partnership with World Business Chicago and CDFI partners. They will provide businesses with grants of $10,000 each and will be distributed citywide through a lottery. We will take extra effort to make sure this funding is distributed with an equity lens, just as we have done throughout this pandemic, meaning businesses in our most underserved, underinvested communities have access to these emergency funds. And the application will open the week of November 16th, and grants will be distributed before the end of the year. And we'll provide more details shortly. Again, we know that there's a sense of urgency around getting these grant funds into the hands of our small businesses, and we're going to do everything we can to expedite the process as quickly as possible. The second initiative is a launch of a new campaign called Takeout Chicago. With the support of Choose Chicago, we will be encouraging residents with the financial ability to do so to support our beloved hospitality industry. Our neighborhood restaurants and bars make up the backbone of so many communities across the city. And if we want them to survive, and of course we do, we all need to show them our love and our support, and particularly patronize them in this difficult time. So let me give you the details about this contest. Residents who order takeout from 10 different bars and restaurants between today and December 15th will be entered into a contest to win VIP tours for themselves and 3 others at one of our renowned cultural institutions, including Soldier Field, the Art Institute, and DeSable Museum, and more. This is a behind-the-scenes look at these iconic institutions in our city. So once again, you've got to order from 10 different restaurants between now and December 15th to be eligible for the lottery for these VIP tours. Participating residents can enter the contest by submitting their name and the list of residents and bars they ordered from at chi.gov/takeout. That's chi.gov/takeout. Now, we're putting you on the honor system. We wanted to make sure you actually do this because this is all about supporting our local bars and restaurants. So do the right thing. If you've got the means, order from 10, and then put yourself in a position to win one of these great behind-the-scenes VIP tours. Participants can use the hashtag #TakeOutChicago to spread the word to friends and family. And to kick off this initiative and mark my first restaurant off the list, and yes, I'm all about it. I've ordered takeout from a black female-owned business, Lexington Betty Smokehouse, and we're going to be providing food for everyone who's here. I got to tell you, it smells absolutely delicious. And let me just tell you a little bit about Lexington Betty's. They are a black women-owned barbecue chain that's still expanding with locations on both our south and west side. In fact, it just opened a new location in the food hall of the newly renovated Cook County Hospital. The two owners are with us today. I'm excited. They're excited. And I encourage those watching now to have the resources to do so, to start thinking about what's your 10, about what you want to order for takeout to help support our local businesses. And I think I'm supposed to show you the goods. Ladies, good stuff. Let me come from behind the podium and give you a little peek. For those who are interested, this is good stuff. So, I got a little Sammy, barbecue, some sides. Can you see that, guys? And, of course, you need something sweet when you eat barbecue. I got a little cookie action here, too. So, please support them. Now, I said we're going to do 4 things today. Here's the third. To alleviate the added financial strain that the increased reliance on delivery has created, I will be working in concert with a number of aldermen, Alderman Tunney in particular, Alderman Wagesback, and Alderman O'Shea, to pursue legislation that will temporarily cap the fees that third-party delivery companies can charge restaurants and bars for their services. Folks, this is fundamental. We just got to put more money in the hands of these restaurants and bars as they are compelled to really go online, to really rely upon delivery and curbside pickup. We've got to be fair to them and make sure that they have the ability to pay their bills, keep their employees employed, and capping temporarily the third-party delivery fees, I think, is a good way to make sure that we're moving in the right direction to support our small businesses. Now, this is going to require legislative change, and as I mentioned, I'll be working with members of the City Council so that we do this in an inclusive and transparent way. But I want to get this done. I want to get it done as quickly as we can. So we'll be working and hustling with Alderman Tunney, Alderman Wagesback, and Alderman O'Shea, and others in the city councils, so we can bring some additional measure of relief to our restaurants. And I look forward to collaborating with members of the city council to get this legislation passed in the final few weeks, the next few weeks. Now, fourth, but certainly not least, we are launching ShyServes.com. That is ShyServes.com. With the support of the Chicago Cook Workforce Partnership. ShyServes.com will assist displaced hospitality workers by connecting them to resources, including job application, career counseling, and job training to reskill and re-enter the workforce through the partnership. And as I'm sure we're all aware, COVID-19 has left a particularly devastating impact on our hospitality workers, many of whom have lost their jobs and can no longer access unemployment due to expired federal relief. And if we're honest, there are going to be some in the hospitality industry who are just never going to be able to access unemployment benefits. We need to be thinking about them as well. This initiative will give all these workers access to the employment and professional development opportunities they need to find stability and get back on their feet during these unprecedented times. Now, make no mistake, today's announcements are by no means fixes for the many challenges that the hospitality industry currently faces. They're the result of our city and our partners working together to use every last resource we have to support our businesses in the best way we can, all while being guided by our values of equity and inclusion. And let me just depart from my prepared script. There's a lot of uncertainty in our land right now because we don't know who the next president is going to be. But I think the fact that our hospitality industry, along with many others, continues to suffer as a result of COVID-19 economic impacts just underscores the need for the federal government, the House and the Senate, to do their jobs and bring relief to our cities so that we can support the backbone of our economy, which is our small businesses. There is no reason for any further excuses. The federal government, the House and the Senate need to step up and do the right thing. We know that the financial impact of COVID-19 has deeply affected every city, every town across the country. This is not a partisan issue, and so it should not be decided by partisanship. This is a time when, as a country, we must come together. We must unite. We must stand together to help our neighbors who are desperately in need. Now, I sit here as a mayor and think $10 million will have some impact, but not nearly the impact that it would have if we had real partnership with the federal government, if there was a real stimulus bill that came here to our city. We need them to work together. So I'm just telling anybody and urging anybody within the sound of my voice, stand up and demand a level of accountability from the House and the Senate. Put a bill on whether it's this president or the next president's desk. We desperately need help from the federal government to solve so many of these challenges on behalf of our neighbors, our friends, our small businesses. We need this done. Now, we're not going to wait. As you heard from us today, we're doing our part, but life would be better if we had a functioning federal government that actually heard the needs and reflected the lived experience of people, not just in Chicago or Illinois or even the Midwest, but all across this country who are hurting and suffering as a result of COVID-19 economic meltdown. So please, please, Congress, stand up and do your job. Now, I want to also underscore that if we do our part every single day to curb the spread of this horrible second surge of this virus, we will also curb the need for our businesses or curb the reality of our businesses suffering. Why are our businesses closing down? Why are they in such dire strait? It is directly related to COVID-19. I said this to somebody earlier today. This is a disease that each one of us has the power in our own hands to make an enormous difference. When I see people walking down the street and they're not wearing a face covering, when I see people gathering in large crowds, despite the fact that we have been preaching for months now that gathering in large social settings is a death knell, literally, for people in our city, I am absolutely livid, but also more determined to make sure that we educate people into compliance. Every single individual has a role to play. We will not get past this second wave unless people step up and recognize this is serious, shake off the COVID fatigue, step up and do the right thing for yourself, for your loved ones, and for your city. You know, we take a lot of great pride in Chicago as being this city that of big shoulders, where we take care of ourselves, where we are second to none. Well, if that's all true, prove it. Prove it by doing the right thing in this difficult time. Let me also just touch upon Thanksgiving, my favorite holiday of the year, a time when normally we'd be gathering with family and friends, take the day off, eat a ridiculously big meal, right? Watch a little football. We all have our Thanksgiving traditions. But this year has to be different. This year, we can't enjoy the traditional open up the doors and bring all the family into our homes. That is dangerous in this time. So please, folks, be sensible, be smart, and take care of yourselves. But don't have a big crowd in your home. We know that a considerable amount of the growth in COVID-19 cases, and Dr. Artie will talk more eloquently about it than I could ever be, but we know that one of the places that is a serious problem with spread is social settings, in the homes, in private settings, where people let their guard down, take their mask off, and just say, hey, you're my friend, you're fine, you're safe. Cannot do that. We've got to make sure that we understand the virus is here, it is deadly, and it is destroying lives every single day. So we've got to step up and do our part, limit the number of people in indoor spaces and social gathering. So I think I'll stop there. Thank everyone, and just say to our small businesses, this is an extraordinarily difficult time. No question about it. I think about the workers. I mentioned last week, my wife and I went out to kind of what we morbidly called our last supper, to a neighborhood restaurant. And there was a woman that was working there. She came and brought the water and the bread. And at the end of the evening, as we were getting ready to leave, she asked if she could have a photograph, which I was absolutely honored to do. And I just became overcome with emotion, because I thought, what happens to her? How is she going to pay her rent? How is she going to make sure that she can take care of her basic needs in this incredibly difficult time? If you think about nothing else, think about that woman. Think about all the people that she represents in our city, who are hardworking people, who are the backbone of our small businesses, our restaurants, our bars, our hospitality industry. They need to be able to feed themselves and take care of their families. They need to work. But they can't if we are selfish and we don't do what needs to get done to protect ourselves so that we can start stabilizing the number of cases, see those cases go back down, and get back to some semblance of a normal life. Whether or not that happens, when it happens, is really in all of our hands. And I just really beseech you and urge you to think about that as you go about your daily business. Wear a face covering, folks. It's not political. It's public health. It's smart. Don't go outside without one. Don't bring a bunch of strangers into your house. Don't go to big 600-person parties like we saw on Halloween weekend. Be smart, be safe, and be the embodiment of what it means to be a Chicagoan. Thank you. Dr. Artie.
Thank you, Mayor. So I continue to hear people here in Chicago who think that we're not talking about them when we're talking about the increases that we're seeing here from COVID-19. I'll be brief today. We're going to show some data, but my goal is that every one of you is recognizing that when we are asking you to double down on the things that we know work, we absolutely mean you. There is not a single person in Chicago who is not at some level of increased risk from COVID, because our outbreak is surging in ways we have never before seen. We have an outbreak that is worse than what we saw in our first peak, with no signs of slowing down. As of today, our average number of new cases just in Chicago every day is 1,395 cases. To remind you, we want this number less than 200 cases per day. All summer, while things were surging around the country, we kept it in that 200 to 400 range. And then just over the last month, this is what we've seen. Our test positivity citywide is now 10.9%. That means more than 1 in 10 of the people being tested for COVID right now are coming back positive. That should be less than 5%. And it was. But now it's been shooting up with no signs of slowing down. Here's what that means in terms of our numbers. We've had more than 108,000 people diagnosed with COVID-19 here in Chicago. Almost 15,000 of those people are active with COVID right now, meaning they've been tested and they're infectious. They're potentially spreading COVID. But we know that there are 5 to 7 times as many cases here as those that are being tested. And so we know there are actually between 70,000 and 105,000 Chicagoans with active COVID right now. Yes, most people eventually recover. We can see 83% of the people with COVID here in Chicago have recovered, although every day we're learning more about long-term consequences that some people are seeing, even with the recovery from COVID. But we've also had more than 3,000 deaths. And this increase in cases is already leading to an increase in hospitalizations, ICUs, people on the ventilator. We've seen a small uptick in deaths, and unfortunately, there's no reason to think that won't also slow down. Let's turn these numbers into what this means for your life. Right now, if you take a random group of people here in Chicago